against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign.
The former director of national intelligence under President Obama, James Clapper, denying that President Trump was ever wiretapped. Multiple agency heads also denying Mr. Trump's explosive allegations over the weekend. In fact, Bill Hemmer spoke moments ago with General Michael Hayden, former director of the CIA and the NSA.
What do you think was going on at Trump Tower last summer? What do you think was going on there last fall?
Well, in my heart of hearts, nothing that has to do with electronic surveillance on part of the United States government.
Bill Benning is a 36-year veteran with the National Security Agency, the NSA, before becoming a whistleblower after discovering the elements of the data monitoring program he helped develop and the uses of that program, and we're going to talk to him today. Bill, great to have you on the program.
That's good to be with you.
What's your response to what Michael Hayden just said on our network?
Well, I mean, he should know that the Stellar Wind program, which was the domestic collection program, has been ongoing since October of 2001, and that includes several sub-programs that are fiber optic taps with the assistance of the telecommunications companies, about 100 of them across the United States, and the objective there is to collect all the data on domestic communications. That includes emails, phone calls, everything. And that's why they have to keep building larger and larger storage facilities, because they're collecting more and more as the years go on.
So let me back up a little bit. There's been so much focus on the FBI, FISA warrants, what would be needed to surveil an American citizen. Based on your experience, what kind of surveillance on American citizens can be done without a warrant?
None. That should be the rule. I mean, if they don't have a warrant against a U.S. citizen, they shouldn't be collecting data.
Is that what's
happening? But that's not what they've been doing. Yeah, they're collecting data on every U.S. citizen without a warrant. I mean, you could look at the original bit of information released from Edward Snowden back in June of 2013, was the FISA court order to Verizon to tell them to turn over all the data on approximately 110 million of U.S. citizens. I mean, and there's no probable cause at all there. And so that of course, that business record bulk acquisition was recently ruled by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals as illegal back in 2015, I believe it was.
So is it your assertion that every American citizen continues to be spied on by the NSA?
Absolutely, yeah. With no warrant or no oversight by Congress or the courts.
How is that happening?
It's all done by Executive Order 12333. And it's done in cooperation with the telecommunications companies. That's one of the reasons they had to get retroactive immunity back in 2008. Was because they were assisting in this process.
Okay, so I'm going to try to even make this a little bit more simple. We used an example yesterday on our program speaking to a former FBIer, talking about FISA warrants, because I wanted to give our viewers a sense of what it takes to get a FISA warrant. I said, okay, let's just say hypothetically I was communicating with someone in Syria. The FBI was curious about that. There's a FISA warrant issued and they're surveilling me. And I had a question about how that data they collected was then used, since so much of my communication probably wasn't happening with Syria, but within my team here at Fox News. Can you take that same scenario and bring it over to the NSA? Because I want our viewers to be clear, there's different agencies that can do surveillance. If the FBI needed a FISA warrant, how could the NSA do a dive into my data right now?
Very simply because they collect the entire set of data flowing across the fiber optic lines inside the United States, no matter where they end up, whether it goes to foreign countries or stays domestically. So they have all that data already stored in their storage facilities, and then they simply interrogate it by your phone number, your IP address, or any other signature, banking accounts, or credit cards, things like that.
So if someone wanted to do a deep dive into the data that I have, they would just plug in my phone number and they would have access to the data?
Yes.
Okay, and that would apply to me, John Scott, Vito, our camera guy on camera one, and the President-elect of the United States of America.
That's correct.
Who has access to that data? If there's a big net put out, let's say we want to look into this phone number. We're going to throw this net out and collect all this data so we can go through this phone number to see, is there anything questionable happening? Then who has access to the data? Who is mining that data?
My estimate probably be between 3,000 and 6,000 people inside the intelligence community. That would include people at the FBI and CIA who also have access directly into the NSA database. They do that through the technology center at Quantico, Virginia, that the FBI has, and that goes routed directly into the NSA databases.
So you made a point originally that there was an executive order that allowed this to take place without a warrant, to allow the surveillance to take place without a warrant, and that continues to this day. Does that mean it could be easily reversed, taking away that executive order? Could President Trump change this?
Yes, he absolutely could, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, all he'd have to do is eliminate the section. It's section 23C, where it says that it says something like this, that if you are going after a drug dealer or other criminals on a communications line, you can take the whole line and maintain it, even if it involves U.S. citizens' communications, and store it and keep it indefinitely for data mining.
Wow.
Now that basically says that they can take the entire communication network of the world, including everything in the United States, capture it and store it and mine it. That's what's going on.
There's a lot of online shopping in my data footprint. I just want everybody to know that, Bill. And I don't mean to be flippant about it. I mean, there's a lot of serious communication, of course, we're all doing online as well. There was something interesting that happened in the final weeks of President Obama's administration, and he issued an executive order that allowed a certain amount of intelligence sharing between agencies. Based on, again, your knowledge and your experience, what sort of effect does that have on the mass data collection of all Americans? Who has their hands on it, and how it can actually be mined?
Actually, that expands the number of people who could have access to this database and see and make queries into that data without oversight, I would say again. So it actually opens up the opportunities for greater numbers of leaks.
Interesting. And that's where we are today, in a period of a lot of leaks and few facts and a lot of anonymous sources, and one has to wonder where are the leaks all coming from, which is why I wanted to talk to you today. Just a final question, just to underscore this, Bill. Again, American citizens not guilty of committing any crimes, with no warrants, being surveilled, and that data collected, placed somewhere where many people have their hands with access to it. Is that the current reality inside our country?
Yes, and it's been that way for quite a while. I mean, even David Murphy Falk and Adrian Kinney, who were transcribers at Fort Gordon, Georgia, were transcribing phone calls between U.S. citizens and also NGOs, and that's been going on since 2001. So, I mean, they may say one thing publicly, but in secret, behind closed doors, they're doing something totally different. Very
interesting. Important perspective. We were so caught on wiretapping FISA, FBI. Perhaps a broader conversation on surveillance still needs to continue. Bill, this is just the beginning. I appreciate your time, and we look forward to having you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another big story today, the notable change